I don't know if you want to talk a little bit, just begin about your background, your experience and stuff like that, if that makes sense.
Sure. Well, I've been teaching collectively here for 31 years. So I worked in this building for 7 years, and then I actually got laid off. And then in the 2 years that I was gone, I actually ran the food. I was the food service director. We had a food service director here in the Salem School District that went on maternity leave, so I was asked if I could take that position for a year. So I actually did that for a year. They actually offered me the job full time at the end of the year because she didn't come back. But I missed the classroom, so I resigned from that position. I also am health certified too, so I also have a FACT certification and a comprehensive health certification as well. So a lot of what we do here at the middle school is not only family and consumer science, which is nutrition, and it parallels a health program, but we don't really have a formal health program at the middle school. So because I'm also health certified, a lot of what we do here is also health. So I do that as well. So yeah, that's kind of my educational background.
How, like, in your time, like, how has it changed, like, what kids learn about, like, nutritional things, like, diets and things like that, food, like, getting the proper nutrition? Has that changed much?
There's a lot more that we have to, like you mentioned that you're vegan, and there's so many food-related issues with kids, starting with allergies, whether they're lactose intolerant. But we do see a lot of kids. I have a couple of students now that have certain nutritional needs because of their religion too. We have kids that are diabetics, and over the years that's increased a lot, especially with allergies, and some of our students that are diabetic too. We have a lot more than we ever have in the past, and especially with allergies. It used to be that you would see a couple of allergies here and there, and now pretty much every single class we've got food allergies and whatever. And again, we just try to accommodate as much as we can. What's great is that there's more options out there. So a person that's vegan, for instance, when I first had my first student that was vegan, there was nothing as far as a lot of choices out there that we could use. So we had to alter a lot of the recipes that we did. We just had to try to think outside the box. Now there's a lot more that we can go to for kids that have special needs as far as their dietary needs are. So that's a good thing. But yeah, it's a lot. It's changed quite a bit as far as their needs.
Have you had a lot of students who are vegan or vegetarian before?
Yeah, currently, like, this is the second quarter. In FACS, we have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We have them for 1 quarter each year. And so this second quarter just started. I have at least, I think, 5 students that identified as being vegetarians. And 2 of which it's partly their religion. The other 2, I think it's just by choice. I don't have any vegans right now, but yeah, it's more and more. You see more and more. It used to be once in a blue moon you'd see someone that's even just vegetarian. But no, there's a lot more students that are nowadays.
And how is their experience in, like, FACS class, like, different than, like, is it different at all? Like,
I don't. It's not really that much different. So no, we try to keep it pretty much the same experience. With our schedule, what's good is that they can come in like during DS, and another one right now is the kids that can't have gluten or they're choosing to be gluten free. So it just depends on whether they have celiac or whether they're choosing to be gluten free, and that one's a little bit more tricky. But again, there's options. So we might have to make a whole another batch, let's say, of muffins, and I usually have them come in with a friend and do that during DS. So yeah, we try to accommodate.
What about just the food service aspect of being at school? Are there any challenges that you perceive that someone who's vegetarian or vegan would have with that, like just coming to school and getting lunch and stuff like that? Anything there at all? that you can think of?
I mean, that vegan is the more difficult one to make sure that, because nothing obviously from an animal they're going to take part in. And as far as the school lunch program, they do have some modifications and alternatives that they can do. I'm not familiar with how far what they do offer, especially for a vegan.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that in the past they've dealt with that, and it was years ago that I was actually the food service director. So I know things have changed, obviously, but I know that they do try to accommodate for that as best they can. It's just that the choices might be limited for depending on what the allergies are or what the food issue is. So I think it just depends.
Do you see going in the future that it's only become more accommodating, or it's going to be like a struggle to be any more accommodating? What do you think?
What the struggle is budgetary with us.
Okay.
We actually each year when we put in our request for a budget, we have asked for like increase in our food budget, which hasn't. It's actually gone the opposite direction. But that's one of our justifications, is that we need more money because a lot of these products that you can get now are just more expensive. If I buy gluten-free bread, for example, or if I buy a vegan type of cheese, it's just more expensive. And we're seeing more and more kids that need those accommodations. And it's also not very economical sometimes, like lactose-free milk. I might have to buy an entire half gallon, and I might have one student that needs it. And obviously, we're still going to do that. But so I think that's the one struggle that we see, is as everyone's budget is super tight. But if we have more and more kids, and I don't know what the answer is or why. I think it's our environment that kids are growing up in, why we have so many issues. Because again, when I first started teaching, you'd have like a peanut allergy, but it was really actually pretty rare. Most kids could, and back then too, you could make peanut butter cookies or use peanut butter and nuts and stuff, and that's the other half of it that's tricky, is that in 8th grade, for example, we'll do an energy bar recipe. Mm-hmm. And in the recipe, I talk about what options they could do as far as putting nuts in or peanut butter to up the protein. But unfortunately, we just try to stay clear, because there's so many kids that have severe allergies to the nuts or peanuts or whatever, that we just try to keep all of our stuff nut-free, as an example. Okay. Which is too bad, because as the vegetarian, they could use that protein. So.
Okay. What is your opinion on protein? Do you think kids get enough protein? Do you think if of any of the macronutrients, kids need more of that? What do you
think overall Americans are pretty good in protein. Right now, that's the big thing. I also work in a gym, and it's all over the place. Protein powders, protein drinks, protein. And our requirements for protein are really not that much. But on the other hand, especially for a vegan, if a vegan is trying to get the necessary protein, that's unless they're not picky eaters. The first vegan I ever had was a male, and he would try anything. He would eat any combination of food. He was really, really good. And then a couple of years later, his younger sister came along, and she was also vegan. And again, it was a family choice. But she was really picky. And I worry about that, because if you're not eating the right combinations of food for a vegetarian, especially a vegan, and again, back then they didn't have as many choices. Now you do have more choices, but again, you can be deficient in protein. But I think overall, if people are not vegetarians, protein is not usually something that they're lacking.
What do you think in kids' diets? What do you think they lack the most? What are they most likely to lack?
Vegetables. Vegetables, hands down. And even fruit, hands down. And then probably it would be the whole grains. They get plenty of grains and carbs, but it's the simple carbs, their cereals are laced with sugar and that type of thing. But vegetables, hands down. When we talk about their diets, and they do take a look at what they're eating and stuff, it's vegetables. They just don't get enough.
Do you feel like school lunches are becoming healthier at the middle school level, maybe more specifically?
I think well, first of all, there's a struggle for them to even stay afloat financially. When I ran the program for 1 year, their budget was something that was incorporated into the school district's budget. And then it changed. They have to be self-sustaining. So they get no money from the district. And because of that, over the years, they started doing alternative things, a la carte foods, vending machine foods. And with that, they can make a lot of money, and that kind of offsets the school lunch. It's tough to run a program and actually make money on the school lunch. There's commodity foods that they get, but the commodity foods you get, it's like you can't use. It just depends on what commodity food. When I took it over for 1 year, one of the things that we got as commodity foods was hamburger patties. And I was told never to turn down hamburger patties. Well, we had like cases and cases of hamburger patties. Like, I don't care if I do triple hamburgers on the menu all the time. We're not going to use it all. So, but I think there's a real struggle. They're trying to make it healthier. It just depends from district to district too on what they're doing. But I think it's a real struggle to make kids choose the healthier foods if your vending machines are packed with things that are not healthy. And even with the vending machine foods, they're supposed to they're supposed to be following some guidelines, but there's still products that they're just not. And in my opinion, if you put those products in there, and maybe they have a little bit more whole grain than they used to, or a little bit reduced fat. But again, if you have on the line, like say apples, but then in the vending machine you have Cheetos that are reduced fat, what is the child going to pick? So I think it's tough. They do have to abide, obviously, by the guidelines because that's a government-run program. And over the years, they have been looking at, better amounts of fat and whole grains and stuff like that. But it just depends from district to district on whether or not they're actually successful. But it's a tough program. It's really tough, and I can't imagine when I ran it. When I took it over, we were in the red, and when I ended at the end of the year, we actually were in the black. But again, we didn't have to be self-sustained, and now they do. I can't imagine trying to keep their heads above water, pay your workers and whatever. But again, the 1 year that I did it, that didn't come out of our budget. We were in the black just from selling our lunches and whatever and paying our food costs. Now that I'm pretty sure they're still responsible for everything, their workers and whatever, and that's hard to do. So.
And does the reduced lunch program that a place like does that affect that in any way, or does it not make a big difference? Is it
probably absolutely affects it. It depends on how many free and reduced lunches they have. Yeah, it's a tough program to, again, stay where you're where you're doing well.
Okay, and just to clarify again, just so I fully understand, the reason why a school, why they would say why a district would say if you ever have an opportunity to get more hamburgers, take more hamburgers, would that just be because kids will buy that, or
no? What happens is that the government has certain foods available that are called commodity foods, which are they can purchase like a case of something at minimal cost.
Okay.
And it could be based on the surplus that's out there at the time. So obviously they're just encouraged to take that food because essentially it's not free, but it's next to free.
Okay.
So if you can supplement your menu with those foods, then you're not paying these huge costs to regular food distributors and stuff. So it's beneficial to do that, but I think you have to be realistic. When I took over, it's like I understand it's beef, but I can only put so much beef on the
Okay.
menu. But it's not based. The commodity foods are not based on what the kids want.
Yeah.
It's just basically what's available
Okay.
at that time. And usually, well, at least again, this was several years ago. I don't know if it's done differently now, but it was once a month. We were told by the representative like what was available, and each school district might be, we're a bigger school district, so we might they might offer us more cases than a smaller school district of whatever.
Uh-huh.
But then you basically, as the food service director, would decide, okay, what do I need? Do I need the beef? Do I need, it could be egg product, whatever. It could be vegetables. But yeah, but that kind of helps with their overall costs of running the program.
Do you find that, elementary, middle school, high school, do you find that one grouping is maybe gets more healthier options than the other, one's worse than the other?
Again, they all have to follow certain guidelines,
Okay.
and I think I think what happens too, and again, it's been years since I've been in the program, but at elementary schools, and again, I don't know what they're currently doing, but what I saw is that there's fewer options for those kids, and they're younger, and they're more easily convinced by maybe staff to, hey, try this or try that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would happen is at this level, they get more choices, which is fine because
Mm-hmm.
they're older. But now that you start to throw in a la carte items like ice cream and things that are in the vending machines, they're older. No one's holding their hand now. So now the responsibility is more so on the students. And then when you get to the high school, once again, same thing. There are more choices for them. They're older. So I think it's just by nature, we kind of direct the little ones more so than by the time they get in middle school, and then obviously by the time they get in high school, they can make their own choices about what they're doing. Am I going to just grab 2 pieces of pizza and that's it? But yeah, I think that's more what's happening. As far as their school lunch program, there's certain guidelines that they do have to follow, or they don't get, reimbursed.
Okay.
So yeah.
The last question I want to ask you is, an American population that is 100% vegetarian versus an American population where there's 0 smoking, which do you think is more likely and
To
why?
happen?
Yeah, in the next 30 years.
Huh.
If you had to put your money on it.
On which would happen?
Yeah.
The smoking.
It's the smoking?
I think so.
And why?
I think they can buy into the risks. I mean, it's well documented, and it's funny when we do that in 8th grade. We talk about tobacco, and we talk a little bit about the history. And I said, even when I was young, I remember watching TV and people were smoking, on TV, and there were commercials. Although now with the e-cigarettes, it's a whole different ballgame. But it wasn't until the mid-'60s that a major government study was done on tobacco. And even though we still have big lobbyists for the tobacco industry, and it's still getting trickier, I mean, I don't see either one going away totally. But I don't know. I think that, I mean, there's definitely benefits all around for vegetarians, absolutely. Just the benefits of our agriculture and how much it takes to, just raise one cow and whatever. But I think overall right now, I think kids are more educated and they're smarter. You see less and less, and they almost don't have to be convinced. I mean, there's still a lot that are going to use tobacco products, and you also see it with the tobacco companies trying to get more clever. It's not just cigarettes anymore. There's so many different types of products that have nicotine and tobacco and whatever. But I don't know. That's a tough one. But I suppose if I was to pick, I just think that there's been a longer fight of, and there's I think it's a clearer path for them seeing that, yeah, if you smoke, this is what's going to happen to the lungs, and this is what's going to happen to every organ in your body. I don't think they're so much convinced with being a vegetarian yet. because if they eat in moderation, they can certainly be very healthy if they are not vegetarians. I think that'd just be a bigger fight, I think,
Right.
to convince people.
And the fight continues.
And the fight will continue.